Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Got seeing some names showing up there and people heading their way into our session. I would love to see your faces if people felt like we could have our cameras on. That would be amazing. My name's Rachel Sutherland, and I want to welcome you all here to our session on math. It is a little bit after 4 right now, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, Kristen. Kristen is a rock star. I can see your face. Um, Sometimes it's hard to talk to no one that you can see. That can be a challenge sometimes. Kristen, how are you?
I'm doing good. I just got out of my own session not too long ago, so I'm really good.
Great. Well, nice to see you. Yeah. And I just welcome everybody here. We're here sometimes at the end of kind of long days. And yeah, so I just appreciate it. Hi, Crystal. How are you? I can see her face right now, too. Awesome. No, I appreciate that. And yeah, I appreciate everybody being here. I'm excited to talk to you all about math. And again, my name is Rachel Sutherland. Um, we are going to go on a little journey today. We just have a little bit of time, and oh, I see some other cameras being turned on, and that's just I really appreciate that. That's just literally for me, so I can feel like I'm speaking to humans. So yeah, I really appreciate everyone that's got their camera on right now. So yeah, I am the director of mathematics for Lead, California, and I'm so just excited to be here with you today to talk about math. And we're going to take a little bit of a different view of some of the things we're going to talk about. And what we're really going to be focusing on is this idea of, why are we having so many of our kids enter our classrooms feeling like they're not, quote, math people? And what can we do about that? Because it's not okay. Um, and so, yeah, so we're just going to dive right in. I want to show you just a quick, reason why I am here, which is my family here, my amazing husband and my kids sent the one on the right off to college this year and super proud of him. We just got him back for the summer. So super excited about that. We also have a couple pets. This one's the cutest. He knows it. He's a big love. But that's the one on top that rules the house. So our cat Phantom. And yeah, so he let me know that he needed to be in the slideshow or there would be hell to pay. So, all right. And just a little bit of an introduction of myself. I was a teacher, a classroom teacher for 23 years. I taught middle school, I taught in Ojai, a little bit in Palm Springs, mostly in Oxnard, California. And I taught everywhere from, the middle school grades, first grade, fourth grade, and sixth grade. And that is really the heart of what I bring to the table is just many, many years of being in the classroom and just kind of struggling along with my colleagues of how could we get this thing done of really teaching in a way that was engaging and just reaching all kids. And math has been just, my focus. And then just what it says there on the slide is what my jam is, what my focus is really building identity in all forms and especially in math, which is my focus. I was a child of refugees. I was a language learner when I came to into school. And I was considered dumb by my just educators at the time, all the way through elementary school, was almost retained every year. And just what they said was, oh, she's going to have more services the next year. And so really, really unsuccessful. I didn't learn to read until I was in fourth grade. And then in sixth grade, and this is probably the reason why I'm here today with you, I had a teacher, Mr. Dudley, because I remember everything about Mr. Dudley. from sixth grade, he just changed my identity in 1 year. He was like, no, that's not true, Rachel. Like, nope, you are not dumb, and we're just gonna leave that behind. And he gave me a little statue of an award, one of those little ones with like the plastic thing on it and with the little wings and like the angel. And he was like, you get a math award this year, Rachel. And that man, that experience changed my life and renamed me. So I went from dumb and completely unsuccessful and just terrible grades, obviously, for through sixth grade. And then after that, Mr. Dudley had the audacity to put me in honors classes for starting in seventh grade and on upward. And so I had this experience of what is my identity? I'm the same person. I'm the same brain here. What is my identity? Was I that one that people thought actually couldn't do anything? Or was I then the honors student? And since that time, that's really been my struggle of like, why does this happen in school where we're so misidentified like that? And especially in math, I think that's really true. And so I'm also a doctoral student at UCLA, and my research really focuses on identity because of that, and equity because of my own experience, and like we're going to talk about today, this idea of community. Um, and so, yeah, just kind of diving into what we're going to be talking about today. I want to just talk about a couple norms. I'm going to ask that we just explore the ideas we're going to talk about today really collaboratively and participate with an open mind. I'm going to ask for us to just be really present and just kind of hear with these ideas. And then, yeah, and then just, using technology with a purpose and just being here focused on what we're going to be doing. And then here, our driving question for what we're going to be talking about today is, and this is where my family just laughs at me. They're like, really, really, mom, like, how can we disrupt the traditional structures of math instruction and build an approach to math that empowers learners to feel competent and successful in math? So the only ask for today is that we're going to disrupt math education. But friends, that is actually what I'm saying. I am actually asking for us to think of how we can do that because math education hasn't served most of us. And math education has been something that has kept some of us out instead of including every one of us in. And so we're going to talk about that as our driving question. We're going to be doing a couple of things as far as our agenda. Um, we're going to be talking about how has math instruction resulted in an identity crisis in our country. We're going to engage in a math activity that is done in a way where we're going to focus on sense making, discussion, and flexible thinking. And we're going to think about how that interacts with the ideas that we're talking about. And we're going to be exploring the brain science um, that helps us to understand our students and how they can feel more respected and competent in our math classes. Um, and so what I would like us to do here to begin with is I'd like us to get going on some math. And what I'd like you to do is just, there is a QR code there um, that I would like everyone to access if we could do that right now, please. And I have a question for you that I need some just actual responses on, if that would be possible. And what I'd like to ask is just, are people going to be able to access the slides? I have a couple things, especially for this activity, where I need you to be able to access the slides. And just asking if people can access through this QR code, or if there are people that aren't able to do that. So I would invite us to, can you give me just maybe a verbal response here? Or can I get some thumbs up? Are you guys able to access through that QR code?
I can access it through the QR code. Sorry.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, yeah. Is there anyone who's having trouble accessing? Okay. Okay, good. So if you are, just let me know and we'll see if we can get this information out in a different way. And okay, so what I'd like us to do is just take a look at, we're going to start with math. Okay, we're going to start with a math activity. I always like to do that in the PDs that I do. And I think it's just apropos for us to really just dive into a math activity. And so we're going to do that. And what I've done is I've taken an activity from Fawn Wen, the amazing Fawn Wen, and one of her visual patterns. I have it linked there. So now that you have all these slides, there's a lot of live links that you can use to access these and many more. She has a lot of these activities that I would highly recommend. And I want us to just take a look at this slide. And what I'd like you to do is with just, you and yourself there and maybe a pad of paper, I'd like you to just look at this and see what you notice about this pattern. What we're engaging in is going to be a form of a math talk, and I would like you all to just kind of take a look and see what is your thinking around this pattern. What do you notice? You may want to draw out the pattern. You may want to describe it in certain ways. And I'm just going to give you a few seconds here, just under a minute, to just look at this pattern and see what you think. I'm going to ask people in just a minute to share your thinking. So I would love to have people just kind of representing there. We've got about 30 seconds that we'll take here. All right, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the share for just a second. I'm hoping that you have a way to be accessing these slides. And what I'd like to do is just put us into some rooms, into some breakout rooms. And what I'm going to do is ask you to share the thinking that you've been doing around that pattern. And all we're trying to do is talk about, how do you see that pattern changing? How does it make sense to you? And so I'm going to move us into some breakout rooms here. Just give me a moment. There's going to be a few people in these breakout rooms. I'm going to ask people to just share what your thinking is, and they should be opening up right now. Looks like we're missing Crystal.
Feel free to throw, I think we can throw other folks into the other rooms if needed.
Now, how would I do that? Oh, move to?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's move her into. Okay, that would be lonely.
Hi, there was no one in my breakout room.
You know what? I just moved you, Cecilia.
So, am I saying getting sent to a different room? Or
Yeah, if you could join room 1. And maybe Yvonne, is there something else? I had moved you, but I don't know if that's.
Yeah. So I believe you should have received the invitation.
Okay, Cecilia, are you not able to get in your room either?
No, well, no, nothing's popping up right
Here,
now.
let me move you to room 2 and see.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, yeah, it looks like I missed the invitations. Adriana, are you having trouble getting into your room? All right, we're getting our people back here. Looks like we're just about back. So I hope you had an opportunity to share your thinking. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again here. Yvonne, I might need your help here. I'm having trouble figuring out how to get this back to where I was.
Is it share screen for the share?
Let's
Oh yeah,
see.
you got it.
Now it says your sharing screen, your screen share is paused. I'm gonna go completely out of it again. Okay. Friends, I am just gonna apologize for. Yvonne, do you see that where it says your screen sharing is paused?
Yeah, I don't.
I'm getting a yellow square that says my screen sharing is paused.
Um, okay, I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know why either. Let me try
Um,
this a different way. See if I do desktop.
I see your desktop, but not your.
Exactly, but not the.
Um, um, do you have your slides? You can send them to me and I can pull them up.
You know what? Let me just try desktop one more time. I just fixed something. Friends, thank you for your patience. Can you all see that now? Can you see
Yeah, we can
the
see it.
slides? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at what you all did with this, and I would love to hear a little bit from some people on just how you saw this. And if I could ask for a couple of people to just unmute and just talk about what you saw in this pattern. What did you see going on there?
I noticed in this pattern that there was two dogs added at each.
Okay. So Crystal, what I hear Crystal talking about is she was noticing the quantity two being added every time as each step went along. Is that right, Crystal?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So, and if I was notating on this screen, which I'm not going to try to do with all the issues that are happening right now, but if I was notating on the screen, I might be notating about the quantity two, because that's what Crystal was focused on in her thinking. And that's what really stood out to her. I bet though, and when I was in the rooms, I heard some different thinking though, that that's not the way that everybody saw it. I bet that there was at least one more, if not five more ways that people saw it. Is there someone else who maybe saw it slightly different than that would want to share your thinking?
Hi, Rachel. So when I saw it, I saw there was one puppy on the left, and then looking at the rows, I saw 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I saw the pattern again where it was again 1, 2, 3. So I kind of saw it in that visual way.
So Janine, so what Janine is saying, I think, and Janine, you correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Did you see that one at the top row where you like top row is 1, 2 puppies, 3 puppies, 4 puppies? Is that what you're saying? And then did you see the bottom row doing the same thing?
Yes. So I saw kind of like it was creating like an upside down pyramid almost going out. Mhm.
Yeah. So the way that Crystal and Janine saw this pattern was both, very valuable ways to see those things, but very different and bringing a different focus of what was going on in this pattern. I know in the slides that followed, we had this question of what was the 43rd step. And I would love to hear, did anyone have an idea of what that 43rd step would look like? I
If
know we
being
have.
honest and no.
Okay, yeah. That's a little bit of an ask. It really is. Like that's tough. You have to really generalize is what we're asking, which is an algebra word. We need to generalize. And what we're getting into is some really deep algebraic thinking. I also didn't give you very long. I didn't give you a lot of time to really dig into it. This might take some time. The more we do these things, it helps our brains to kind of dig in. I did hear somebody though in one of the rooms talking about how if you were on the 43rd step, because it goes 1 puppy for step 1 at the top, 2 puppies for step 2 at the top, we could probably predict that there's going to be 43 puppies, maybe, if we were thinking about it like that. So there is a way that a lot of us could get to actually the 43rd step. There's a way to do it. And I've used these activities from Funwin from all the way through first grade, all the way through high school students and in various PDs. And yeah, and so what this I think brings out is our brains thinking about generalizing, our brains thinking about, this is algebra that we're thinking of how are patterns increasing and what's the meaning behind that. And friends, for a lot of our students that come into our classrooms, thinking like this can be very, very intimidating. And what we find is that our kids are coming to us a lot of times with just a lot of fear about their ability to jump in and really do this kind of thinking. And it's almost a different fear in some ways than we're seeing with things around reading or language arts. And so that's really why we're here today talking about what we're talking about is what is at the heart of that and what can we do about it. And I want to show you a couple examples from students these are fourth grade students that I worked with a couple years ago in Oxnard School District. And I want to just focus because of time on this left example. This friend had, he was a student that was receiving special ed services. He was also a very challenging behavior little guy. And kind of as I was walking to the classroom, I was called in because of behavior, not math. So from the district office to teach this class because of the terrible behavior that was going on. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna bring in some math and get some work samples. And so this friend, when I walked in, kind of yelled out this actually math related thing that he thought was going to shock me. He yelled out the number 69 and looked at me as a fourth grader and like, what are you going to say, teacher? And I was like, friend, you and I are going to be best friends. Like, we're going to be so close. So, and then told me that he was terrible at math and couldn't do it. And then produced that work sample on the left. After some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And there's a lot to say about that work sample. He has a lot of assets going on there. But the one that I think stands out the most to me is that 0 on the far left. Do you see he's got 0 or 1 plus 0 right there? That is a huge level of mathematical thinking right there for that fourth grade friend. And when I saw that, I was like, no, it is not that you cannot do math. Nope, I'm not believing that at all. There's some mistakes on this page, but there's a lot of assets. And so we're going to talk about just, how are we going to put together some of these ideas that we've been talking about here for a minute. And I do have a page on the slideshow of visual patterns here that gives you the link to Fon Wen and just a bunch of these. And then I give you a basics of how to start using something like this if that's something that you would like to do. What I want to take a couple minutes to do is just kind of deepen our kind of what we're exploring right now. And we're trying to just get to this idea of what is math identity all about? And what are some ways that we can really dig into building that identity for kids? And what I'm really going to be focusing on is really one key thing. There's a lot of things involved with it, but there's one thing that I'm going to have us be focusing on. And I hope that all of us have had a chance to see, or maybe will have a chance to see, the movie Counted Out, which it just came out as a documentary by Vicky Abeles. She's a former Wall Street lawyer, and she turned into an education documentarian and an activist. And it's an amazing movie. And what I'm going to do is just share the preview with you all. I'd like us to take a look at this, and then we're going to just talk a little bit about some of the themes that she brings up. And much of what is talked about in this documentary is exactly about the identity that our students are either feeling or not feeling in math class. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing for just a second. I want to make sure that I have clicked the right boxes here. I'm going to share sound. Okay. And then when we get to this.
If you think about the 20th century, then you're thinking, well, you need to know enough math to function at the post office. But in the 21st century, we're in a different ballgame here.
The world that we're moving toward has math everywhere. And I don't mean this in like a, there's math everywhere, kids, kind of a way. I mean something concrete and kind of dark.
You've seen the math just fly out of control with this virus.
Social media privacy.
Carnage on Wall Street.
When you consider the issues that we as a society face, most of them are fundamentally mathematical.
The algorithm, AI,
health insurance, climate change.
There's no way to think about gerrymandering without thinking about math. Math is central to what democracy will or will not become.
We have a math crisis in America because we have taught math in a way that alienates people.
It made me not want to go to school.
We mispredict who can and who can't do what based on socioeconomic status. We mispredict based on race. We mispredict based on gender.
For as long as this algorithm misrepresents me, I'm gonna be denied parole and I'm gonna stay in prison.
There is a view that if you're not going to go into science and engineering, finance and accounting, then you don't need to do math. And that is a very narrow view of what math is.
Social media platforms are trying to limit the spread of conspiracy theories.
What we need now is the ability to discern what counts as good information and what doesn't.
That's what math brings us. It's a language for proving things.
We need to be able to understand when people are making particular kinds of arguments, whether or not there's data to support them.
99% of the ISIS and Al-Qaeda content that we take down on Facebook, our AI systems flag before any human sees it.
Did you know that if you insert a single statistic into an assertion, people are 92% more likely to accept it without question?
Everyone is capable of mathematical thinking. It's like an inheritance you get just for being human.
It's not just about numbers and equations. It's about thinking logically about the whole human world.
Whether you're trying to win a basketball game, find a cure for cancer, everything ends up being a math problem.
The question is, how is it that we can begin to use math to actually understand the world and then to also change the world?
All right. Love that. Love it, love it, love it. The star of that movie is a man named Bob Moses, and this is a little bit of an aside, but I just have to put a spotlight on him. He was a civil rights activist in the 60s that worked on voter registration for sharecroppers in the 60s. In the 80s, so not even 20 years later, he started working on math education because he felt like that was the future of actual equity and civil rights in the United States. So friends, part of that, what that movie was talking about was this idea that thinking about math is an inheritance from just being human. That's one of the quotes. And, do our kids come to us feeling like that? And I'm going to say that a lot of our kids don't. The structures of math education that we've had, that we were taught under, a lot of us here, don't serve all of us. And for sure haven't made all of us feel like I belong here. This is a place for me. My thinking matters here. And I'm accepted. And the way that we can see that, it's just clear. That clip gave us some information about that. And then also here's some just additional kind of proof or evidence of that. 93% of us, you guys, report feeling math anxiety, 93%. And I think just that, it's wrong. What is wrong with the way that, those traditional math structures have come down to us to where 93% of us report that. I'm going to continue to just claim that, friends, we need to disrupt that. It needs to not be 93% of our students that are leaving us that feel anxiety around math. And I'd like us to just take a really brief look. We have a very short time together right now. So I just want us to take a really brief look at, this is CASP data from 23, 24. And what you can see from this data is, first of all, you know, math, looking at the far left there, all students that met or exceeded 35.54%. In ELA, 47. So we're already just overall, we're already like, why is it that much lower in math? And then as we go through the grades, you can see that the following columns there start with, you know, math in third grade. If you look at that red one, math in third grade, 45.63, math in 11th grade, 31.56. We're losing kids as they get older. They're losing confidence as they get older. And then as we look at our subgroups, African American students is that yellow, Latinx, purple, English language learners is blue. And look at just the abysmal numbers of our kids in our subgroups not doing as well, period, and then doing worse over time. And so, friends, that is why I speak on this. My colleague Janine is here, and in our organization of I Lead, and just in the work that I do, this is what I speak on, because I think it's important. I think it's one of the issues of our time, that math education is disrupted, and then it's different than the way we got it. And friends, you know, one of the things that was stated in that clip as well is the way that success in math mispredicts based on the things that I have listed here: socioeconomic status, race, and gender. So if we were to take the whole of the United States and you just randomly picked someone, if that person was poor, that person would be far less likely to be successful in the system that we came out of in math. If you took that same person, and if they were a person of color, they would be far less likely to achieve success in math. If you picked just one random person and that person was not male, they would be far less likely to be successful in math. And again, my statement to all of that is, let's disrupt that. And what is it that is fundamentally causing those things? Our kids and ourselves, y'all, have received this message that we need to think the way someone else thinks. We need to think kind of someone else's thoughts, not our own thoughts, and someone else's thoughts kind of after them. And that we're not actually just bringing ourselves into math class. We've been taught math in ways that feel exclusionary, and I'm going to say lonely, disconnected. And again, this needs to be disrupted. Peter Liljendahl, one of the biggest kind of math researchers right now, says that when students arrive in our classrooms, they recognize the familiar script. And what it is that they take their seats. A lot of times we kind of grade homework. We go right into, hey, here's the notes. Here's what you need to know. And we're jumping right to the algorithm. The algorithm being something that someone else came up with of how to solve problems. Not that they're bad, but that we only want our kids to memorize what those things are and think the thoughts of someone else behind them, and then perfectly replicate and execute that every time. On whatever it is that we put in front of them. We ask them to mimic, and then we give them kind of examples. I'm going to work some examples, you copy them down. Now I'm going to give you some, you do them. We're going to do them one way. We're going to check them. And if we were in person, I would ask you to raise your hand. How many of you had math experiences that looked like that? And many of us, that's exactly what we did over and over again in math class. And we need to interrupt that. And just that, what are those entrenched patterns? This is from Peter Liljendahl. More than half of our kids, what they're doing in math class is not learning, it's mimicking us. And what's the difference between that and what they would actually do if they were learning? So, which leads to what I'm going to call zombie math. And so, you know, that leads to the brain science. What is it that we can do that's the most proactive, protective, best like bang for your buck thing that we can do based on the brain science to impact those negative outcomes that we've gotten over and over again in math over the years, those traditional structures, and that have led to the outcomes, the lack of equity, and just to class cultures that feel lonely and exclusionary. And I've taken this from the culturally responsive teaching the brain, Zaretta Hammond. She's literally my wingman. I have this book. Her book is, sitting in an honored spot on my bookshelf here in my office, because this is what centers me as a math educator. She doesn't really speak directly to math in this book, and yet I think it's one of the most important things that we can know. I'm going to just do like a brief review of what some of this brain research is. And what she starts with is in her brain research section, talks about just these areas of the brain. And what I think is the most important thing to think about here is that there's layers of the brain that start with the oldest parts of the brain and then go upward towards kind of rational thinking and some of the places where we want our kids to be really living in math class and thinking, and really all day. And that reticular activating system there down at the bottom is extremely important. That is the one of the control centers of alertness and attention. So if we don't have that part of the brain, we're really in trouble. That's the part that like directs any part of the flow to what we're talking about in class. And so we're going to kind of get back to that. And then there's some other parts that you can see that are listed here. We've got that watcher part, okay, which is what we just talked about. That they call it the RAS part of the brain. And that's what that really scans the environment. So that's where attention comes from. It's really, in the way that humans have developed, it's about alertness and attention because of safety. And then that amygdala is the guard dog. So that's just kind of one layer up, and that amygdala is going to be like, you know what, are we in danger? And it's going to have the opportunity to kind of take over the brain if there's anything that needs to be kind of watched out for. And then the hippocampus, that's what she calls the Wikipedia pages. That's the place where we would have background knowledge. It's working memory. It's where information is processed, and it's something that can be shrunk or shut down if the amygdala gets triggered. Okay, so friends, and you might be thinking, well, we're not out in a jungle, Rachel. Why would that be important in math instruction? And I would submit to you all and just make the claim that our kids, every time they're walking into our classrooms, are right there with all of those parts of the brain. And when we're talking about the dangers that our kids are kind of watching for and thinking about, that's the dangers of being excluded. That's the dangers of the friendships that they may or may not have. That's the dangers of bullying, and any of the things that could be happening in a school setting that don't feel safe. And so when our kids walk into math class or any other class, we're not just there talking about math. We're actually trying to activate those brains that might be very, very busy taking care of other things. And then just really quickly, what are neurons doing? What do we want them to be doing? And basically what we're doing when we're learning is creating connections between kind of synapses. Okay, and we're trying to get these connections happening. And you can see this little road that's being formed on this slide. And what we're trying to get is to a position where kids have those sheaths built. Okay, those myelin sheaths there. And what that's doing is it's like it's a paved sidewalk. So it's much easier to kind of walk on. And we want our kids to get into that position. And what they need is they need all the attention, all of those brain functions kind of in place and in a row in order to get to a place where they're doing that. And friends, this last part of our brain research that we're going to be looking at today talks about some of the safety threat system that our kids have that are related to all of those areas. Okay, we have that watchdog part of the brain that helps us to shut things down when we need to keep us safe. And she breaks this down into, there's these behaviors of avoiding, approaching, and attaching. And what I want us to look at is really, we need to understand avoiding and approaching. Avoiding is what a lot of our kids walk in doing, right? I mean, if we're teachers, if you're student teaching, if you're in a classroom, you see that all the time. There's kids who walk in the classroom already avoiding. And so, part of what we can do is to say, hey, what are our kids doing? They're doing a safety mechanism that's literally hardwired into their brains. That's what they were designed to do. And yet, what I'm going to submit to us today is let's move them along that continuum to attaching. What happens if they get to that attaching part? The purpose of that attaching is to connect with others in order to increase protection and connection. So if they're in avoiding, they're detecting threats, and it says physical, social, or psychological. Okay, as they're approaching, they're starting to seek out well-being and reward despite obstacles. So it can be something that helps them to be really resilient. So that attaching section is using different parts of the brain structures that you can see there and take a look at. So, and I think those mottos of the little behaviors. So moving away from pain is one motto, moving towards pleasure, and connect to protect. We're going to really focus on that part of just connecting to protect. And what's the focus? Let's read the focus that's right under that connect to protect. It says, focus on finding a tribe. We're going to come back to that. We can use that. Focus on finding a tribe to help share chores, find food, provide community, so one can focus on learning, making art, reflection, exploration, and innovation. This is humans and brain function. So if we are still in moving away from pain, the other side of things, we're focused on assessing risk and threat in an environment based on a deep culture and past experiences or our socio-political context. So we're basically spending our time assessing risk and trying to just avoid. I think, like I said, we see that in our kids. And to have a brain understanding of what that means when our kids are doing that, I think is really significant. So when our kids are moving away from pain and in that kind of fight or flight whole situation, they're also releasing cortisol and adrenaline, and which prepares them for defense. Okay. And what that does is it shrinks working memory. So just to keep that in mind, if our kids are in that state, and no matter what is causing it, if they're in that state, we are literally shrinking their memory. On the other side, if our kids are in a position where they're connecting to protect, we're releasing oxytocin. So, which encourages bonding and just creates a state of just well-being, a feeling of well-being for our kids. So, and what are the social implications? That on the far left, so moving away from pain is, is there trust or lack of trust? That would be lack of trust. And self-protection over a sense of rapport. On the other side, and I'm going to kind of be skipping just because we're getting towards the end of our time here. Our kids are feeling included, not marginalized, open to connection, not having, traumatic stress from experiences in school. And I'm going to say that there's been a lot of people that I've talked to who've had math trauma. I bet that there might be someone sitting here today that's had math trauma. And having a sense of compassion versus just that self-preservation. And so really the question is, so Rachel, like, what are you suggesting? Like, what is that one thing that I'm suggesting that we bring to our math classes? And what I'm going to say is that one thing is that we build a community. that we build a community. And friends, there's a lot of lip service to this. There's a lot of like, yes, we need community and SEL. And what I'm going to say today is, I would like to ask us to, even whatever we're doing in math class, to have community in mind. Anything that we're doing, to have community in mind, where acceptance, safety, and deep respect, not agreement, not necessarily agreement, but deep respect are the central things that we're doing. And then I'm just going to list here not. And the not side is the traditional math side. This is what we've seen in traditional math classes, that we're trying to find answers quickly. That's how we're measured for success. Are you quick? And do you have the correct answer? Those are the two values that we're really focusing on, memorizing rote steps, or let's say just times tables. Times tables are important, friends, but it's just like you are times tables, king or queen. And so you are the, pinnacle of math success, or you have your facts, or however we're going to say it. That we're focusing on using one strategy, the correct one that someone else came up with to solve a problem. That we're retaining disconnected pieces of information that don't really make sense to the user. They made sense to someone at some point, but they don't really make sense to me, but that's fine. Turn your brain off, just memorize it and regurgitate it. And then again, learning math facts. So instead of that, what does it mean to build a community? And that I'm going to suggest is thinking and strategy making first, jumping into problems with courage, but together. And so that when we're talking about that problem solving, we're doing what we did at the beginning of our time together, which is to listen to Janine, to listen to the way that Crystal's thinking is different than Janine's, to compare them, to really think about them in a respectful way, and then to have discussions about that information that we see. And that process is really, a different way to approach math class. So we're focusing on productive struggle, that we're struggling together, that we're being creative, which absolutely the only way our kids can be creative is if they feel safe. That we're going to focus on flexible thinking, not just one way. And we're going to be redefining errors as positive sources of information in our process of learning math. I think that what we actually need, rather than thinking someone else's thoughts after them to be good at math, is to think how we think, to be able to bring ourselves to math class, to trust ourselves, to build on our own thinking, and to bring our own experiences. We have such beautiful, varied experiences that are going to walk into our classes. And all that language, all the culture, all the different forms of understanding that we have. And to use those things as our approach to math. And yet those things are shy. They will not come out if we don't provide a setting where everybody's ideas are respected, everybody's ideas are considered, and that we're not looking for that one answer. And as I'm saying these things, we might be sitting there feeling like, well, Rachel, that sounds great, but don't we do that already? And I'm going to say we kind of don't, and especially in math class, where we're a lot of times very, very well-meaning teachers, very well-meaning. And this was me for many years in my career. I was looking for the answer. I was looking for the answer. And if my students didn't have that one answer, I was like, we're almost there to success. Instead of defining success as success is that we're a community, and success is how you got to that answer. And so if our community is listening to how you got to whatever answer it is, what's happening is that you are very successful and you are learning math. And if we redefine our math classes in that way, that would change the world of math class for so many of us. So having that space and the time to think the way we think, to talk about it, and to build up our understanding in our own way. Not saying there's no algorithms, there absolutely are. There's not, looking at those steps, not to say facts aren't important, they absolutely are important. but to change the focus from those things and jumping to those things to we're a community, everyone's thinking is valued, and we look at it no matter what it is. I used an example today of I was in a fourth grade class where we were talking about a problem that had 2 cookies in it, and we were doing a math talk. And I was writing on the board our various, people's thinking, and I was writing exactly what they said. I wasn't commenting on what I thought about the answer being correct or not. So the 2 friends that went first talked about these 2 cookies. There were 2 cookies in the problem. It said it. That's what it was. It was 2 cookies. Another friend started talking about 7 cookies. And so, that I was doing this demo lesson and the teachers were looking at me like, oh, well, you got to correct that, teacher, because it's right there. It says 2. And I was like, I'm not correcting that. I'm going to write exactly what this friend says up here. And I want everyone's just beautiful thinking to be looking at that and to be discussing with their partners about what they think, comparing people's thinking, and then to be talking about like, what is compelling to you and why? And that way, the little miss, she saw 7 somehow. Her thinking's on the board and respected just like everybody else's. And yet there's a way for everybody to think like, what makes sense to me? 7 didn't really necessarily make sense in some ways. And so the question is, how are we getting there? Friends, we have about 2 minutes left. I'm going to kind of run through some of these slides, but what we're really talking about is one of the standards for mathematical practice. It's really more than one, but I'm going to focus on this one. Constructing viable arguments and critiquing the reasoning of others. When we're doing that, and when people are listening to it, we're building a community. And what I'm going to say is that's the heart of math. And that's what I'm going to encourage us to do today. When we're doing that, we're doing the 3 main things. This is a tool that we use at iLead. If we're doing a great job teaching math, we have productive struggle going on in our classes, we have mathematical discourse, and we have fluent, flexible thinking happening. If we're building a community like I've described right now, we're doing those 3 things bottom line. We don't even have to think about it because that's what we're doing when we build a community. So when you look at the basics of what is great math instruction, it actually is, the definition is building a community. There's some other kind of tools and things there for you. And I would love to, my last activity, which we will not have time to do today, was to analyze some student work. And this was an approach of just thinking about what are ways that we can look at what students say. This is what the student said, the student work here. This is the way that she approached this problem. And there's some real strengths. It's a little bit, you got to dig into it to understand it. And then how would we really listen and give it that respect and model that for our students? So I'll kind of describe that for you. Here's another example. Love these and wish we had time for them. I'm also going to say that this works. So in the Oxnard School District, you can see the top row are 4 schools' math scores in 21-22 of CAS scores. And what we did, the bottom row was we basically did this one thing where we focused on community building. And you can see the difference there of we'd had just a lot of jumps. And you can just imagine if kids are feeling safe in math class, if they're really talking, it's going to result in some things that are more successful. And that's what happened. So friends, we've done our agenda, and I hope that we have just thought about some ways that we can disrupt those traditional structures and that we can approach a way to do math that empowers our students to feel competent, that uses the way their brains work to help kids feel safe in math class. What we're doing when we build a safe environment is we're really disarming all of those things that can get rid of the higher structures of the brain, and we're making it possible for our kids to learn. And if they feel connected, if they feel like they're part of a community, we're releasing those beautiful chemicals in those brains that make them want to come back, that make it easier to learn and open up their brains. There's that QR code again. And I do want to say, if we would love to invite you to consider teaching at iLead. It's an amazing place to work. I absolutely love it. if you would like some more information, please let me know, or there's also a QR code to scan there. And I thank you so much for your time this evening, and just appreciate your listening ear. And that is it for us this evening.
Yay! Thank you so much, Rachel, for your inspiring and amazing presentation. So before you all leave, I do have to make a plug for our opportunity drawing. Since you came here to this session, we'd love your feedback. If you can scan the QR code, I'm going to drop the tiny URL into here, and basically, yeah, if you can fill it out, you can provide feedback to Rachel for her presentation, as well as enter your name into the drawing. We'll be actually drawing our first set of winners after this session. So, so please do that for us. Let me put the site in Teach for LA 2025. Throw this into your browser. Should work. And then, yeah, we are done for today.
Tia, can I just ask you a quick question? Miss Tia Jones, if if you're not busy doing your thing.